the darkest and saddest time of our lives. We became a channel of light and healing. From expensive and unavailable alternative medicines that took the lives of many, we created affordable and effective medicine in 2005 to alleviate the sufferings of people challenged by depression and other diseases.
So, who is MedChoice?
MedChoice is an advocacy of our chairman that is to provide affordable, quality medicine, proven effective, and affordable solutions to our patients with psych, neuro, and thyroid conditions, as well as products with diabetes management and supplements for maternal care, and soon, vision care.
So, how long have you been in the industry?
For 17 years, MedChoice has helped millions of patients. We have 150 highly knowledgeable and competent employees and are still growing.
And how about your other products?
Most products of MedChoice are sourced from local drug manufacturers, while some are imported from international drug manufacturers. Quality and affordability is our promise, as our products are backed up by proof of quality, especially for mental wellness and brain health. As we move forward to more years of providing better choices, mental wellness is your perfect kasangga of the psychiatrists, patients, and their families. Brain health is your highly dedicated partner that delivers outstanding services to neurologists, patients, and their families.
How about customer service?
We have the utmost dedication to our customers, and we also make ourselves available whenever our help is needed by our customers. 100% pure care talaga. We continue with our mission to make better lives for everyone. Priority ka namin dahil may choice ka.
There's nothing quite like good mornings spent with your family. It makes you recharge to go out and face the day. It makes you feel that today is going to be a great day to set our lives in motion. It makes you feel hopeful that things would go smoothly and function well. It makes you ready to go out and claim victory. I'm glad I get to spend morning rides with my daughter. It's always a relief to have her company before I get to work. Sending her off to school with a happy smile always puts me in the best mood. I'm excited to get to work today. After all, a good night's sleep makes you feel great. My jobs can be challenging sometimes, but the people I work with make it easier. We always uplift each other when things get tough. I work with a diverse group of people with different skills and different stories. There's Don, who makes every moment count, both here at work and when he's home. Melissa, who you can always count on to keep cherished memories and beyond. And Nita, who holistically improves the spirit of everyone here in the office. We work hard on a variety of things, which is why I boost my immunity so I can be healthy in mind and in body to keep up daily. Most days, we are confidently in control of any situation here at the office, making sure that we reign over challenges together, that we move with a common purpose, that we put first things first even when we are at work, and strive to strike a balance between our work lives and personal lives. So when we go home after a productive day with ease, we can find our inner stability. Live our lives to the fullest with the ones we love, and behold calmness, so we could live every day with a healthy state of mind and body.
Designed by Otska for clinicians like you, the Abilify Maintenna dual-chamber syringe provides all-in-one reconstitution and administration. Preparing Abilify Maintenna pre-filled dual-chamber syringe includes advancing sterile water for injection into drug chamber, mixing, attaching needle, expelling air. Let's look at each step in detail. The dual-chamber syringe kit includes everything you need for the preparation and injection of Abilify Maintenna with the pre-filled dual-chamber syringe. The first antipsychotic for schizophrenia in a dual-chamber syringe design contains both pre-measured drug and diluent, which allows for complete reconstitution, all within the syringe. The kit also includes a quick reference guide with step-by-step instructions for proper administration, an Abilify Maintenna package insert, and 3 different needle size options to choose from. The size of the needle will be determined based on the size of the patient and site of injection. The recommended starting and maintenance dose is 400 milligrams once monthly. In conjunction with the first dose of Abilify Maintenna, patients should take 14 consecutive days of concomitant oral antipsychotic. The dual-chamber syringe is available in 400 milligram and 300 milligram syringes. Both Abilify Maintenna lyophilized powder and the sterile water for injection are supplied within this syringe, eliminating the transfer step from vial to syringe. The Abilify Maintenna pre-filled dual-chamber syringe allows you to reconstitute the lyophilized Abilify Maintenna in 2 steps. 1. Push the plunger rod slightly to engage threads, and then rotate the plunger rod until the rod stops rotating to release the diluent. After the plunger rod is at a complete stop, the middle stopper will be at the indicator line. 2. Vertically shake the syringe vigorously for 20 seconds until the drug is uniformly milky white. Visually inspect the syringe for particulate matter and discoloration prior to administration. The reconstituted product suspension should appear to be a uniform, homogeneous suspension that is opaque and milky white in color. Use within 30 minutes after reconstitution. Twist and pull off the overcap, as well as the tip cap. Select the appropriate needle based on the size of the patient and the site of injection. For non-obese patients, a 1-inch, 23-gauge needle is available for deltoid injection, and a 1 1/2 inch, 22-gauge needle is available for gluteal injection. For obese patients, the 1 1/2 inch, 22-gauge needle is available for deltoid injection, and a 2-inch, 21-gauge needle is available for gluteal injection. While holding the needle cap, ensure the needle is firmly seated on the safety device with a push. Twist clockwise until snugly fitted. Remove the needle cap by pulling straight up. Keep holding the syringe upright and expel the air by advancing the plunger rod slowly. Continue until the suspension fills the needle base. If it's not possible to advance the plunger rod to expel the air, check that the plunger rod is rotated to a complete stop. Slowly inject the suspension into the deltoid or gluteal muscle in a single injection. Do not massage the injection site. Rotate sites of monthly injections between the two deltoid or gluteal muscles. After the injection, engage the needle safety device and safely discard all kit components. The Abilify Maintenna pre-filled dual-chamber syringe is for single use only. Please refer to the Abilify Maintenna quick reference guide or package insert enclosed in the kit for further information.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the final day of the Makati Medical Center section of Psychiatry's 20th postgraduate course and third webinar series entitled Bridging Mental Health, the Pursuit of Well-Being. I am Pia Babaw Gubalya, and I will be your moderator for today's session. For this webinar series, we aim to promote the importance of mental health through a series of lectures focused on the mind-body connection and its significance to our well-being. Today, our speakers will be focusing on discussing how to achieve happiness in everyday life. We are excited to be having this webinar series with the help of our pharmaceutical sponsors and all those who made this event today possible. We would like to thank our major sponsors for today: MedChoice Pharma Incorporated, Medichem Pharmaceuticals Incorporated, Otsuka Philippines Pharmaceutical Incorporated, and Torin Pharmaceuticals. Before we start, we would like to announce that we will be uploading the recording of the previous lectures on YouTube and will be posting the links on our Facebook page, Makati Med Psychiatry. You may also see the links to the evaluation forms for the past lectures posted on our Facebook page. Now, we would like to remind the audience of our house rules. To officially open today's webinar, let us welcome our Chief of Section, Dr. John Edward B. Hurilla, for his opening remarks.
Welcome to the final day of our webinar series on mental health entitled Bridging Mental Health, the Pursuit of Well-Being. We would like to give a special thank you to everyone who has joined us every day this week. Yesterday, we learned about how to stay forever young, to age optimally and gracefully, as well as how to care for our loved ones in their latter years of life. These lectures center on something we all hope for: happiness. Renowned child psychologist and beloved friend of Makati Medical Center Psychiatry, Dr. Carandang will be discussing how to set the tone for a happier family life. Our section's former chief, psychiatrist Dr. Lovie Hope Go-Chu, will guide us on the pursuit of happiness and discuss positive psychology. We would like to thank today's sponsors, MedChoice, Medichem, Otsuka and Torrent, for generously supporting today's event. We are grateful to our friends in the pharmaceutical industry who have graciously supported the department through our postgraduate course, which allows us to provide learning opportunities like this one for everyone.
Our first speaker for today is one of our esteemed psychiatrists from the section, Dr. Lovie Hope Go-Chu. Dr. Go-Chu graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Biology from the Ateneo de Manila University. She then took her Doctor of Medicine at the University of the East Ramon Magsaysay Memorial Medical Center, where she also had her postgraduate internship. She finished her residency in psychiatry at the Makati Medical Center and also had additional training in forensic psychiatry at Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center. She is currently an active consultant at the Makati Medical Center, where she formerly served as our chief of section. She is also the head medical specialist of the mental health unit at Hospital ng Makati. She also lectures at the Ateneo School of Medicine and Public Health and is a guest lecturer for forensic psychiatry at the University of the Philippines, PGH. She is a diplomate of the Philippine Board of Psychiatry, a fellow of the Philippine Psychiatric Association, and an international member of the American Psychiatric Association and a member of the Makati Medical Association. Let us all give a warm welcome to Dr. Lovie Hope Go-Chu.
Okay, thank you, thank you everyone for attending this morning's lecture. My talk will be sort of like wrapping up and summarizing other things that have been talked about earlier in this week-long postgraduate course. And I think this is the 20th postgraduate course, and we started out when we were residents. We just wanted to earn like some funds so we don't have to pay like 50 pesos each for our, printer's ink. Now it has come a long way, and so has the practice of psychiatry come a long way. Now, we're going to talk about positive psychiatry. Traditionally, psychiatry has always dealt with disorders. It's a branch of medicine that deals with mental, emotional, and behavioral disorders. While positive psychology, this is a relatively new field, and it is a scientific study of optimal human functioning. So can these two ends of the spectrum come together? On one end you have like disorders, and on the other end you have like optimal human functioning. Is it even compatible? So positive psychology, it is a study of those characteristics that will lead to flourishing and thriving. Okay, so what is positive psychiatry? It is a science and practice of psychiatry that will seek to understand and promote well-being. Take note that I'm using the word well-being instead of happiness, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. Promote well-being through interventions that are aimed at enhancing positive psychosocial factors. And later we'll be talking about also what these factors are among people who have at high risk of developing mental or physical illness. So positive psychiatry is not meant to replace a traditional model of psychiatry, especially in persons who are clinically depressed or anxious. However, it is meant to expand the focus of psychiatry from pathology to health and from treating symptoms to enhancing well-being. Okay, so a little bit about stress, depression, and anxiety. What is stress? Stress is defined as the body's physical and psychological response to demands from the situation or environment. So as long as we are alive, we will have stress. It's impossible not to go through life without any form of stress at all. And our response to stress will depend on severity and duration of the stressor. That's self-explanatory. Our perception of the situation. For example, I had a talk before, and I thought that the audience would only be like a group of dentistry students. So that was easy, I can do it with my eyes closed. And then later on, they said, oh, a few of the alumni will be attending. Hala, so medyo tumaas na yung stress. Thus, on the day itself, they told me, oh, alumni from all over the world will be attending. So tumaas, skyrocketed the perception of stress. But, the topic didn't change. I'll still be talking about the same thing, but then my perception of the stress changed. So that's why the stress level increased. Okay. So coping resources also. So for example, if going with that same example, if I did not prepare for that talk and I was trying to just like wing it, so my coping resources won't be as high. So definitely the stress level will be higher as well. So if you want to manage stress, so it's a matter of like balancing, changing and correcting these factors that are in your control to manage. Okay, so that being said, is stress bad? Well, it's actually quite useful in small doses. It motivates us to manage our stressor. So like, for example, if I'm worried about an exam, then I will study more for the exam. Okay, however, if it is chronic and excessive, then it becomes bad because you can have like physical symptoms like headache, high blood pressure, heart, etc. So our health may actually be compromised. And then psychologically, it may lead to clinical depression or anxiety. Okay, so what is depression and anxiety? They are both clinical disorders. Depression is characterized by depressed mood, loss of interest, and other symptoms, while anxiety is characterized by excessive fear and anxiety. So both of them, to be said that they're clinical, they have to affect our relationships and functioning. Okay, so traditionally, the treatment will be like medications and psychotherapy. However, since their etiology or their causes are biopsychosocial, then the treatment will always also be biopsychosocial. So apart from the medications, apart from therapy, you have to provide your patients with certain skills on how to manage like all of these stressors that they're experiencing on their daily lives. And I think that is where positive psychology and positive psychiatry will come in. Okay, can they be prevented? What do you think? Well, stress, since this is a part of the normal human condition, I don't think it can be prevented at all. Whereas depression and anxiety, it will depend. If it's just like normative emotions of feeling sad, after like a breakup or feeling sad because you didn't get what you want, then, those things are not preventable. However, as clinical disorders, maybe they could be prevented if you had the proper skills to manage it. But then, of course, it depends on a lot of things like genetics and all of that also. But that being said, even if you have stress, even if you have normative anxiety and depression, even if you have like clinical depression or anxiety, even if you go through like all of these things, it doesn't mean that, you're defeated. So long as you can like manage them and go through them, there is the opportunity for post-traumatic growth. In fact, the more adversities you have encountered, then the more hopefully growth that you will have. And eventually in old age, you will get like wisdom. You see? So it's not necessarily a bad thing. So the important thing is to survive like all of these stressors that you go through. Okay, so what are these factors that may protect us? So Martin Seligman is actually the father of positive psychology. He came up with this acronym. It's called PERMA. Okay, so try to remember that. Positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. We'll go through that briefly. Okay, so what are positive emotions? Positive emotions involve having like moods and feelings which are quite uplifting. So positive emotions would be like joy, gratitude, serenity, interest, hope, amusement, happiness, optimism, love. These are all positive emotions. And what they found out is that first, negative emotions help us survive, fight or flight, they keep us alive. Happy emotions or positive emotions, Barbara Friedrichman, she said, she came up with this broaden and build theory. If you have like positive emotions, it helps us become more creative. It helps us with like problem solving, decreases illnesses, improves relationships, and ultimately it helps us develop resilience. Okay, so you'll say, oh, I'm not a very positive person, you know. Some people swerte, you know, but it's not like that. There are certain ways that we can develop our positive emotions. And how can you do that? Maybe you can make an album of like positive pictures and then make them your screensaver so that if you're having a hard time, you see the picture of your boyfriend, girlfriend, son, daughter, and then it will make you happy, even for a bit lang. And then you can make a positivity portfolio, like collect photos, gifts, etc. So you can actually have like a little box containing everything. So that will be like your happy box, like bookmarks of ano pa dyan. So and then you open them and then you'll be happy. Or maybe you can make it like if you're very digital, make an album, take a picture and then have an album of that. You can make a playlist of your favorite music. You can call a friend who can listen. You see, I have this friend that, you know, when I'm feeling bad, I'd call her and then, you know, we talk for like hours on end. And at the end, I'll say, oh, thank you so much for listening. It made me feel so much better. And then she'll say, wala naman akong ginawa ah. You see, but just the mere act of talking with someone helps already. And then you can do like random acts of kindness. And then sometimes to balance off like the negative things in social media, maybe you can join groups like, I think I have this group called like Random Acts of Human Kindness, something like that. And then when you read the stories there, it makes you believe in humanity once again. See, so you can balance out, make use of social media like that. And then E stands for engagement. Engagement is that feeling that you get when you're totally absorbed in the task at hand, such that you lose track of time. So sometimes when I'm preparing like my forensic reports, I start at like maybe 9 or 10 in the morning. And before I know it, you know, it's like 5 or 6 at night. Where did time go? You know, you lose track of time. And then afterwards, after you finish that report, you have this sense of parang nanganak ka. You feel so good afterwards. So engagement encourages us to engage in challenging tasks and skills. And by doing that, it improves our self-esteem. The thing with engagement is that you have to get like the correct combination. So if it's high challenge and you have like medium to high skill, then you get that flow that you want. However, if the challenge is too high and your skill is a little bit low, then you get anxiety and stress. And then if the challenge is too low naman, and then your skill is like too high, then you get bored and there's apathy. So what can you do to remedy that? For high challenge, low skill situations, then you can maybe break it down into smaller tasks, increase your level by practicing and practicing, or maybe you can get one of those for dummy courses, let's say data analysis for dummies, you know, you have books like that. So it will help you. So it will increase your level of skill. However, for like low challenge and high skill situations, then maybe you can change it up, increase the challenge, do it in reverse, do it against the clock, you know, like that. And then R stands for relationships. It's very important that you have good, caring, supportive interpersonal connections because they will provide you with the support that you need. And on the other hand, also, positive moods and behaviors are quite contagious as well. So they found out that what is very important for relationships is communication. Okay, there are different kinds of communication. You can have passive constructive. So somebody like your partner tells you, hey, honey, I had a promotion. And then you'll say, okay, that's good. You had a promotion. You can also be like passive destructive. You had a promotion. Okay, but you know what happened to me on my way home? You know, a car like cut me off, you know. And then active destructive. It's like, honey, I had a promotion. What? You had a promotion? That will mean that we will be spending even less time as a family as it is. You know, we're not even spending weekends together. That is active destructive. But what you want is active constructive. Oh, you had a promotion. My goodness, you know, you worked so hard for that. What did you do? How did the boss tell you? How did you feel after that? That is active constructive communication. And if you engage in more of that, then the relationship might actually improve. So M, so PERMA, P-E-R-M. M stands for meaning. Nietzsche said, he who has a why can endure almost anyhow. I remember when we were starting out with the pandemic, I had a patient and he was, I think, a fellow or a resident. I think he was a fellow. And then he had COVID. And remember, this was the time when everybody was so scared of COVID and everybody was like dying. It was like a death sentence to have COVID. And then I talked with him while he was in his isolation. And he said, you know, doctor, even if I had to do it again, you know, I'd do it again because this is what I do. This is what I do as a doctor. So that is meaning for that resident and that for that fellow. And that helped him through his ordeal at that time. What are possible sources of meaning? For some people, it can be self-transcendence. It can be like spirituality, living their lives for a higher being. It can be living their lives for their country. That is self-transcendence. It can be actually like self-actualization. If I'm a doctor, I'd be the best doctor that I am. If I'm a lawyer, I'd be the best lawyer that I can. Pagtatanggol ko lahat ng naaapi. For some people, it can be order. Like I have this sister, she's single, and what she does is that she organizes like all of these things for the pamangkin, the nephews and the nieces, nephews, my trick or treat, all of these things she does, that she keeps order in the family. For some people, it can be caring for others, like people who have chosen to be stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home dads, So the point is that it is up to you to find what gives meaning to your life. Nobody can tell you what that is. Okay, so you can do like fast forward questions. Like for example, for what do I want to be remembered? When I look back, am I satisfied with the life that I've lived? And then am I living my life in such a way that this will be achieved? And then you look back and see that, what changes you want to make in your life to give it more meaning. And then lastly, it will be accomplishment. They've shown that nurturing accomplishments will lead to like higher levels of well-being. So I think a good example of this will be, I'm part of the ethics committee on ethics of PPA. And, we have these really, really long meetings, like every so many weeks, like lasting like hours. We're not getting compensation. I think we get like 300 pesos for meals. But then after that, after each meeting, I feel like so satisfied. I'm not even head, I'm just a member. I don't know if my name will be put anywhere, but you just feel so good because you feel that you have accomplished something. That is accomplishment. Okay, so how can you do that? You can have like an accomplishment portfolio. So list down your accomplishments like by decade, 0 to 10, this is what I did. Okay, so I had honor, I was kind to ganon, I was praised for whatever, little things that, made you feel good. Do it by decade, and then you will see by the time that you're here, there are actually more things that you have done than you would have realized. You can also have like accomplishment savory. So you can pick up like any accomplishment that you had, and then you relish it. You try to recall what happened. Why did it happen? Why did it become an accomplishment? What skills did you use? What setbacks did you have? And how did you manage? You can have like accomplishment anchor. So if you're like feeling like pretty bad, then you can use your past accomplishments to give you confidence. Actually, I did something much harder than what I'm being asked to do now. And you can like look back, look at pictures, and then that will make you feel a little bit better about yourself. So a little bit about accomplishment. Accomplishment or achievement is all about skill and effort. Sometimes we think that, I'm malas, I don't have that skill, nothing's going to happen to me. But the thing is, skill is just like part of it. A huge part of it is really effort also, what Angela Duckworth called like grit. Okay? So like, for example, you'd see like sometimes on social media, sa mga videos na nakita mo, okay, this was me 10 years ago. Just draw like something like a stick figure. This is me drawing now. And then you see like these really complicated lifelike pictures. He didn't get like that. He wasn't born with that skill. But, by through years and years of deliberate practice, he got to the level that he was. Okay, so it has to be deliberate practice. What does it mean? Deliberate practice is like, for example, if you're learning to play the piano, do, a dear, a female, just araw-araw na lang 10,000 hours of do, re, mi, you're not going to get better. But you have to do it, do, a dear, female, dear, and then, just maybe add like a left hand, and then slowly make the challenges like higher and higher so that you improve and you improve. That is what is called deliberate practice. So that is what you do if you want to improve on something. Okay? So a little bit, what is it that prevents us from being happy? First, we have to define what happiness is. Aristippus would say that, happiness is actually the wine, women, and song kind of happiness. And the goal of life really is to maximize pleasure and minimize pain. The thing with this is what we commonly refer when we say we want to be happy, you feel like so elated and all of that. The problem with this kind of hedonic well-being is actually quite short-lived. Feel good, and then after that, nawawala na. So Aristotle said, true happiness is really found in doing what is worth doing and not in having a good time. It means that you have to have purpose and meaning in your life in being part of something that is bigger than ourselves. Actually, it may involve like personal hardship and effort over the long term, but eventually you will get that feeling of well-being. And this is what is called eudaimonic well-being. Okay, so going back to what prevents us from being happy? Well, we have these things. They sound like complicated, but it's actually quite simple. Negativity bias. It refers our tendency really is to pay more attention to the negative than positive emotions, experiences, and information. So, for example, if I were to tell you, this guy, met this guy, super cute, but he has a big nose. So ano matatandaan ninyo? That big nose is the one that will stick with you. So you'll need to say, I met this guy. He was super cute. He was tall and he was like so kind, but he had a big nose. So that will sort of balance out that negativity. So the positivity ratio is you have 3 positives as to 1 negative. Social comparison is keeping up with the Joneses. If I said, I'm so lucky because I'm earning, let's say, 100,000 a month. My residents are only earning like 25,000 a month. So masaya na ako. And then nalaman ko na lang, hala, alam niyo ba, this interventional radiologist is earning 500,000 pesos per procedure. Then, that will put a damper into your like 100,000 pesos a month. So you see, that is keeping up with the Joneses. We keep comparing ourselves to everybody. At some point, we will either come up, worse off or better off than somebody. Okay, so that keeps us from being happy. And also the hedonic treadmill. The thing is that we adapt and get used to like positive events. So even if I were to win, let's say the lotto for like 10 million pesos today, I'd be so elated, mamimigay, magbabalato and all of that. But then after 6 months, you sort of like go back to your normal set point. Okay, so it is not sustained. That kind of happiness cannot be sustained. Well, the good news is that we also adapt to negative events. When I lost my parents like 3 years ago, within a week of each other, you feel that, there's no way that you can like get over that. However, like after several months and now looking back, syempre, there's still like hard times, but it's not as painful. It's not as hard as when it first happened. You cannot imagine it getting better, but it will get better. Okay, and then also, you also have the lack of self-control. They made a study of like 83,000 adults, and they found out like self-regulation scored the lowest of 24 character traits. You see, what's a good example? The example I always give is, for example, I get these cravings from time to time at night. Suddenly crave like chocolate cake or piece of chocolate. Then, and you spend so much time, should I eat it? Should I not eat it? Staring at it and all of that. And then suddenly decided to just like gobble it up. And then felt so satiated, that night. And then the following day, parang feeling mo, ang taba-taba mo, and then you beat yourself up, tapos nagigilty ka and all of that. Versus if I had not eaten it and exercised self-control, the following day, I would have felt na parang pumayat ako ng 5 pounds. Pero hindi naman talaga. So that is self-control. It might feel bad initially, but after that once, you feel a lot better about yourself. So, what are there certain traits that we should develop so that we'll be more predisposed to be like quote unquote happy or to have like well-being? Okay. So Southwick and Charney, they made a study of like, they called it like resilience factors, no? And I just like picked out a few that are quite significant, I think. Optimism is one attitude, it's a future-oriented attitude that things will turn out well. But then you say, malas naman kasi parang hindi naman ganun, hindi ako pinanganak na ganun. But the thing with character traits is that we're born with it and it has like maybe 30 to 50% chance of it is inherited. But then the 50% depends on the environment and you can actually develop it. Okay, so important is to distinguish between realistic optimism and unrealistic optimism. Sometimes we call it like toxic positivity, unrealistic optimism. So realistic optimism is actually paying attention to negative information, but then you're able to disengage rapidly if things appear to be unsolvable already. Versus unrealistic optimism is that, kaya yan, hindi ka mag-exam, hindi ka nag-aral, tapos sasabihin mo, kaya yan, papasa rin yan. That's unrealistic optimism. It will lead to underestimation of risk, overestimation of ability, and inadequate preparation. Okay, other traits like wisdom. Wisdom refers to good sense, judgment, and insight. This is actually something that we develop towards the end of our lives. It involves a lot of compassion, empathy, and an openness to different perspectives. Sense of humor, spirituality, value systems, tolerance. At the end of our lives, it increases our ability to survive in the threat of declining health. How about fears? All of us have fears. but that doesn't mean that we will have to be paralyzed by our fears. How can you manage fear? You can view fear as an opportunity. If I'm able to go through it, I'll be a little bit better as a person for this. You can focus on the goal or mission. Okay, so maybe I'll just focus on the task that I have to do every day until I become more efficient at doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I want to learn more about the things, this topic that I'm fearful for. And then you can face fear with support from friends and family. You can face fear with spiritual support like mindfulness. Okay, so what about spirituality and religion? That is something, a lot of our patients will see, prayers lang talaga. Doc, talagang yun yung nakatulong sa akin. So there's a little bit of difference between religion and spirituality. Religion, as you know, will be the institutionalized worship of God, whereas spirituality is that essential endowment, which will make that direct experience with God possible. And a lot of people cope with trauma and hardships through spirituality and religion. So how do you cultivate your spirituality? You can set aside a time for prayer in your daily routine. You can make a habit of reading like the Bible or any other sacred text. Designate a place for spiritual practice. You can be physically active when you're doing your spirituality exercises like yoga, martial arts, walking prayer. And then you can practice like creative spirituality such as painting, drawing, writing poetry. You can be part of a group that has like mga prayer groups that worships together. And then another way is that to develop social connectedness. We are born social beings. Even when we're very young, when our mothers look at us and then hold us, breastfeed us, connect with us, respond to us when we smile as babies, that is already forming a bond with somebody outside of yourself. So even as you grow older, you do not grow out of that need for connectedness. And so when people are supported, they feel that they're more confident and in control. They're more likely to adopt healthier lifestyles and less risky behaviors, and they're more likely to use active coping mechanisms, and they're more likely to see negative and stressful events as surmountable. Okay, so how do you build your social network? You can reach out to others, smile at people, become a volunteer, call a family member who might be lonely. You can attend like social gatherings and enroll in classes, join in civic groups. You can join a support group. If you can't find one, then you can always like create one. And a little bit about brain fitness also. Being fit mentally allows us to focus on our problems, to process information quickly, remember past coping mechanisms, learn new information, and all of that. So how can the way that we train our bodies when we do like exercise, how do you exercise your brain? Use of brain apps remain controversial. But the important thing is that for us to constantly learn new information and develop new skills. So like, for example, as a psychiatrist, it will not do for me to read more and more and more books about psychiatry, but what might help is to learn a new skill. So like, for example, learning how to do ballroom dancing. I have 2 left feet, so maybe if I learn the steps, it will like activate new areas in the brain. I can learn how to read a pattern so that I can start sewing a new outfit for myself, activating and using areas of the brain that you haven't previously used. And then once you learn a certain skill, then you practice and you practice and you improve that skill. And then, as we said earlier, you do deliberate practice. And then everyday ways of building and maintaining brain fitness, you can try to like write or brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. You can try to get dressed with your eyes closed and teach yourself to read Braille. These are practices that you can do every day. And then you also want to exercise cognitive and emotional flexibility. That just basically means that there are certain things that, that we cannot change. But, what can change will be our attitude towards that certain thing that we cannot change. So that will happen through acceptance. One of them will be acceptance, assessing what can and cannot be changed, and accepting the reality of a situation, no matter how painful. I never go through a talk without talking about my dad. My dad was adopted. He grew up in China, and then, the adoptive parents were like so cruel, hindi siya pinapakain properly, hindi siya kisama, beat him up, and did all sorts of unkind things to him. Eventually, he left home at 15, traveled around the world and settled here, and then started, earning a living for himself. When he was like more stable, you know what he did? Started sending home, to his to his parents, money. When they were sick, sent home like a lot of money, a whole bunch of money. When they died, built roads, etc., etc. And then I asked him, Dad, why are you doing that? Aren't you angry for what they did to you, of all of these unkind things that they did to you? And you know what he said? You know, it is what it is. I said that in Chinese. It is what it is. There are certain things you cannot change and you just live with it. You see? So he did not fixate on, why were my parents look so cruel? He just accepted, that's how it is. And then he chose to be kind. That is altruism. You see, so that is acceptance. You can also do like cognitive reappraisal. So for example, there was this Holocaust survivor, and they said, every night, every morning, I still wake up and I have dreams of what was happening at the concentration camp. And then this person who was interviewing her said, oh, that must be horrible for you to wake up every day until now to those dreams. And then she, what her answer was? Well, not really. Every morning I wake up and I'm grateful that I'm no longer there in that concentration camp. That is cognitive reappraisal. And then, of course, lastly, it can also be humor. Humor provides us with distance and perspective without denying any of the pain. So how do we become like cognitively flexible? We can practice gratitude. We can reappraise failure. Thomas Edison said, if I failed 10,000 times, doesn't mean that I failed. It just means that I learned 10,000 times, how not to do a certain thing. And then we can also look for potential benefits of trauma. As I, going by the example of losing my parents, successively. At the time, of course, it was so painful. You cannot see any benefit to that. But then now in my practice of psychiatry, that I think I can really understand what my patients are referring to, and how they feel when they go through a loss. That gave me empathy, having gone through that and having survived that. Okay. You can also like watch funny movies, hang out with people with sense of humor, etc. So you can develop your sense of humor. So what are like positive interventions that we can try? Martin Seligman did this like experiment. So he had like this set of activities over like 6 weeks, and then he saw that the mood improved after like around 6 weeks. So week 1 involved like using your strength. This is tests that you can do. You could just go to www.authentichappiness.org, and there's this like VIA test. And then after answering like a bunch of questions, it will give you a tally of your 5 topmost strengths and your 5 bottom strengths. What you can do is just choose like 5 of your top traits, and then think of an issue that needs to be addressed, and then you try to find ways of managing that particular problem based on your strengths. Okay. You can also do like 3 good things. So at the end of the day, you do a nightly journal of 3 good things that happened to you. It should be very specific. Hindi lang, oh, I'm so grateful for my life. Cannot be like that. Oh, I'm grateful, I have this helper who's so like helpful, made sure that I had my lunch at the proper time, things like that. You think it might be easy, super hard. Super hard talaga, and sometimes wala ka talagang maisip. But the point of this is that it wants to retrain your brain. Remember, I said that our brains are like hardwired to like pick out the negative. So if you did the 3 good things na practice, it will make you more conscious and more aware of the good things that are happening to you at the end of the day. And then you can also do like gratitude letter. So write a letter to the person in your life that you're grateful for, but never really thanked properly. And then you deliver the letter properly, and personally, and then read it out loud to the person. Initially, it's like so awkward, but the study showed that it was intensely positive, and it was actually the most effective of all the interventions that they tried. You can also try like savoring. You can do is like for that particular study, they were taught to like savor a raisin. Before eating the raisin, kabalin like 1 piece of raisin, parang hindi ka man lang mabibilaukan dyan. So look at the raisin, look at how it looked, the wrinkly appearance, smell it, etc. And then when you put it in your mouth, savor that initial burst of flavor, etc. So that is what you do with all the experiences that you have. Choose one experience every day and savor it. And then Practice also active constructive responding. Remember, we talked a little bit about this earlier. So you respond to other people's good news with genuine enthusiasm and help them capitalize on good news by prolonging the discussion of details of their experience. Actually, they said that it initially felt cheesy, but the response was actually quite positive. What participants felt was like over the top reaction nila na parang feeling so OA naman ito, ganon, was actually what the other person was just looking for. That is active constructive responding. And then lastly, you can do like a life summary, like maybe write a 1 or 2 page essay about the legacy you want to leave behind, for a biography to write about you at the end of your life. And then they were then asked, and then consider how you spent your average day. And then you want to see kung yung legacy mo, is it in consonance with how you live your everyday life? And then most would report a substantial gap. If there's a substantial gap, then what you want to do is to readjust your behaviors to more closely align with your long-term goals. Okay, anything else that might help? Non-pharmacologic, because the pharmacologic, of course, will be another lecture. You may try, like, some people don't want to take medications. They may try like St. John's wort. It can actually be like first line for mild to moderate depression. Omega fatty acids that you get from like fish, seeds, nuts can be second line for mild to moderate depression. And SAMe, it can be used as augmentation with incomplete response to conventional antidepressants. It's actually like second line for mild to moderate depression. We can do exercise. Exercise, hindi naman pwedeng para exercise ka lang 5-10 minutes. It has to be aerobic or resistance training over 2 to 4 months of at least moderate intensity for at least 150 minutes a week. Now you do that, and that can actually be like first line for mild to moderate depression in persons who don't want to take medications. Yoga, they've shown that it actually decreases the time for you to fall asleep and increases the total time that you sleep by around like 60 minutes. And then it resulted in greater feelings of being rested after 6 months. It can be a second line for mild to moderate depression. What about acupuncture? Acupuncture will be like maybe like third line for mild to moderate depression. You can also do like lifestyle intervention. So that's diet. I think we had like a talk earlier on diet. You want to avoid diets that are high in grains, processed meat, sugar, because all of these will lead to inflammation. And recently, that's all the studies on depression and are about inflammation. You want to lessen inflammation. So diets rich in fruits and vegetables will enhance the anti-inflammatory pathways and decreasing inflammation. So meditation, they've seen, can actually lead to reduced anxiety, pain, and depression, enhanced mood and self-esteem, and decreases stress. They've had studies done with fibromyalgia, cancer, and all of that. Okay, so these are my sources, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Go-Chu, for that insightful lecture on positive psychiatry. So it's very important for all of us to find things that will bring a sense of happiness to our daily lives. As a psychiatrist in training, I think it was important to be reminded that we seek not only to treat symptoms and pathology, but really encourage agency towards the enhancement of well-being. I also hope we all remember Martin Seligman's PERMA. So positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment as protective factors to carry us through troubling times. Finally, I especially like the positive psychological interventions, writing 3 good things down every night, writing a gratitude letter to someone you're grateful for, as practical means to remain positive. Should you have any questions for Dr. Go-Chu regarding her lecture, please use the Q&A box to type in your queries, and our speakers will be addressing them later during our open forum. Before we proceed with the next lecture, we'd like to thank our major sponsors for today: MedChoice Pharma Incorporated, Medicam Pharmaceuticals Incorporated, Otsuka Philippines Pharmaceutical Incorporated, and Torrent Pharmaceuticals. Okay, so our next speaker for today is a beloved friend of Makati Medical Center's section of psychiatry and one of the country's most distinguished psychologists. So Dr. Maria Lourdes A. Carandang is a practicing clinical psychologist who pioneered play therapy and family therapy in the Philippines. For her outstanding contribution to the field of psychology and for translating scientific principles and applying them to the upliftment of Filipino children and families. She was honored as National Social Scientist in 1995. She was president of the Psychological Association of the Philippines and former editor of the Philippine Journal for Psychology. She used to teach in the psychology department of the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and Ateneo de Manila University, where she is also former chairperson. In 2014, she was the first person to be awarded as Outstanding Professional for Psychology by the Philippine Regulation Commission, or the PRC. After more than 3 decades of clinical practice, teaching, mentoring, and research work, Dr. Carandang founded the MLAC Institute for Psychosocial Services Incorporated in 2010. The goal of the Institute is to use the science of psychology for the well-being of all persons, especially the disadvantaged, traumatized, and marginalized. Together with her team of highly trained psychologists, she has conducted numerous workshops and psychosocial interventions to help survivors of disasters, child abuse and family violence, and families left behind by OFW mothers, as well as those who work and care for them. She always integrates mindfulness practices and exercises in her work. Dr. Carandang is also the best-selling author of many books on the situation of the Filipino children and families, such as Filipino Children Under Stress, Self-Worth and the Filipino Child, The Path to Healing, and Pakikipagkapwa Damdamin, Accompanying Survivors of Disaster, which was recently relaunched many years after it was first published. For the past decade, she has been giving talks and workshops on parenting, family therapy, mentoring, leadership, truth-telling, healing, and many topics all over the country. Let us all warmly welcome Dr. Honey Carandang.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for doing this webinar in these very challenging times because it's very relevant. The title is Setting the Tone for a Happier Family Life in these changing times. And I'll say in these challenging times. So how do we do that? I think the first thing we do whenever we have a topic is to put the topic in the context of the larger society. So the family now, we look at the family now in the context of our larger society. So we'll better understand what's going on and how it is affected. Okay, first I'd like to make the statement, a very basic statement, that the family is the burden carrier of the social order. Whatever is happening in the society, the country, in the world, has an impact on the family, impacts the family, first of all. And the family will cope in their own way. So let's start with the larger context. How do we see the family now in the larger context of our society? Okay, so first there is, these are the things I see. Lying has become a way of life. Fake news, bashing, lack of respect in social media is happening all the time. There's a rise in cases of depression, suicide, and you all know this, being in the field with PTSD, especially among the youth. I'm sure you experience this yourselves. There's assault on the dignity of people. The way people talk is very harsh. It's not sensitive. Therefore, kindness is disappearing. That's why my institute, we're putting a revolution on for kindness and truth-telling. Anyway, and then there is the toxic politics, which I don't have to explain. Okay. So, with all that, how does the family, the Filipino family, survive and even thrive? Okay, so before we answer that question, we have to understand the family as a system. Okay, the family is not just a group of people that happens to be there, because there's a science to how the family dynamics is in any family. You have to know the dynamics before you can really understand the problem of the person who's acting out. Okay, so anyway, basic statement that we all agree with, I think, and we all know this: any pain or stress felt by a member of the family is inevitably felt by all other members, whether they like it or not, and they cope in their own way. That's another story. Okay, in Tagalog, it's nice. It's a nicer way of saying it. Ang sakit ng kalingkingan ay nararamdaman ng buong katawan. Okay, and so in order to understand the family system, let's do a very brief review of the basic concepts, okay? But I think this is a whole semester, so I'll try to make it very, very simple and very brief. But it's important to say it that there is such a thing as an IP or identified patient. This is the child or the adolescent who acts out in the family and is labeled as the patient. But almost all the time in my own practice, the child who acts out is the one who signals that there's something wrong in the family. He is the symptom carrier, but he is not the problem. The problem is the whole family dynamics. So, for example, I had a suicidal child, depressed and really cutting, but also had other problems. And it turns out, this has been like 2 years ago, but it turned out that this child, a 15-year-old adolescent, was just wanting attention, signaling. And when I looked at the whole family system, there was every reason for her to act out because there were so many things that had to be dealt with that were happening in the family. The parents were about to separate. There was a lot of fighting. There was a big issue of sibling bullying. The ate was bullying her almost all the time, and she was getting very, very depressed about it. And in school, there was a sudden change of teacher and everything. In other words, what I'm saying is we make the patient the patient. But if you look at the entire dynamics of family, the patient is just the tagasalo, the one who's sensitive, the one who sees the problem, the truth teller. And the truth teller is usually labeled as the patient. Another case I have, the youngest, there were 5 of them. The youngest was telling the mother that what she was doing was wrong in her business, and she was labeled the patient, and she was became the patient for 10 years. But she was just a truth teller. So the mother labeled her as the problem child. Maybe if you have any questions to clarify that, because I don't want to make it so long, okay? Then we have the genogram. The genogram is just a diagram that immediately visually tells us how the family is. No? The red one is the mother, the father, and then they're separated. There's a line, and then there are the kids, and then there are the grandchildren, and then that can be the IP. Anyway, that's just a diagram that physically clearly shows the entire family system already without having to put all the words, the youngest, the oldest, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Then there's family myths. Family myths are unconscious beliefs in the family. For example, in the family of angels, they said no one should get angry. Okay. In another family, there's a family rule where if you are not in the top 10 of the class, there's something wrong with you. I know that because my family was something like that. So if there are 5 of us, if you're not in the top 5, there's something wrong with you. It's like an unwritten rule, but we didn't know it. I didn't know it until I studied this system. Okay, and then there are very powerful intergenerational patterns. The ones before there, intergenerational patterns. I will just briefly explain how they are powerful. When we're very young, we absorb everything that our parents say, what they do, how they talk, how they treat each other, how they treat us, without filter, without censoring, because the brain has not developed yet to the point of critical thinking. So we absorbed everything totally, gestures, not just words, when we're young, and then we keep it here inside. So the most important thing is how, when we get older, critical thinking develops. How do we become aware? Because when you're aware that because when you're young, your mother tells you that tells you doesn't love you or does not show you love. You don't think that your mother is wrong, but you think that you're unlovable. So I'll just explain that. But that's very important because then we absorb it uncritically, totally, without filter, without censor, without critical thinking, and subliminally. So it stays there until we gain our critical thinking and somebody points it out to us that become aware. So it's only our awareness that gives us a choice whether, when we have our own family, am I going to do what my mom did because I think that some of the things that my mother did are wrong. And you become aware only when you have critical thinking already. So, but when you are not aware, continues from generation to generation. Right now, I'm dealing with a generation in Batangas. I don't know, maybe it's a macho culture. I'm sorry, I'm from there. So the grandparent had an affair, had a querida, and then the next generation and the next 4 generations already, all the males have an affair, have a querida. So it's like an unbroken intergenerational pattern. Of course, there are many more subtle patterns in that I can think of, but not. You can just ask the question later. Okay, next. Okay, another important concept is degree of differentiation of how we have individualized from your family, because in a family you have to every individual is different, but if there's some kind of a rule that we follow, that sometimes they have to be the same. Why aren't you the same? You have the same parents, you have the same background, but it's important to know that they are different. So degree of differentiation is interesting because it's how the family is either like in the Western family, for example, they are hard-boiled eggs. This is the interesting metaphor of the eggs, okay? Hard-boiled eggs mean they're individualistic. They have shells and they don't interact. They are more individuals. They treated and grow as individuals. But there is, in the Filipino family, if the extreme, carried to the extreme, we're so fused with our family that we cannot differentiate who we are because we have to be family first all the time. So we can be called scrambled eggs. So in the therapy, you have to unscramble and see who you are compared to your brother, and you can be an individual different from your brother, and your parents have to accept that. And you also have your own needs that are not related to family needs. So you don't, you were very used to like the ate sacrificing all her life for the family and not having a life. That's the extreme. Okay, I think you know what I mean. Okay, alliances, of course, are subsystems, meaning, for example, there are 5 siblings, 5 children, 2 may be more closer and they have their own support system, and then 2 may be the other 2 may also be close, and there's one left in the middle, and she's alone. Just dynamics, no? Triangulation is very, very common. It's illustrated by a case where the mother is neglected or not treated by the father, not given her needs, and so the youngest, or no, not the youngest, the oldest, or usually the oldest son will triangulate, meaning will be meeting the needs of the mother, seeing that the mother is neglected by the father. That's called triangulation. It's very, very common, but not really totally always recognized. Okay, there. Oh, there's still the power in the family. When you're doing family therapy, you have to know who calls the shots. Because you're doing family here with the kids, and then the mother and the father, and then I realized it's the grandmother that called the shots. She's the one who would tell them not to go to therapy, not to bring this thing, and not to pay, things like that. No? So the power in the family, if you're looking at the family and understanding, you have to know who calls the shots. You're doing so much work here, but somebody calls the shots in another part of the family, okay? And family metaphors are very, very important for people so that they can look at their family in a kind of a distance and not be embroiled. For example, one family is a spider web. My mother our family is a spider web. My mother is the spider. So it's really like the mother is very powerful, and then you get caught in the mother's web. You know what I'm saying, no? Okay, the symphony, our family is a symphony where they are not playing in tune. Things like that, okay? I think I don't have to explain that further. We'll go to the next na lang. Okay, so I think I said that already, metaphor, and then awareness gives you the choice to change the patterns. Okay, so awareness is essential. This one I will not go anymore into detail, but the family therapist must undergo family therapy and know your deeply rooted unconscious myths and patterns in order to be effective. So also that you don't get caught in the family dynamics, which is very easy to get caught in. Okay, so I say, therefore, that the family is still the most powerful social unit one can ever belong to. Even if you're an adult, you're a doctor, you know that a lot of triggers of the issues of your family happen when you already have an intimate relationship. All the unresolved conflicts come out because you have absorbed it at a very young age. You may not have processed it. And even a 70-year-old person I know still dealing with the problem, that the fact that he was alone when he was growing up in the family. You know? So the needs of interpersonal relationships, etc., come out there. Okay, so It's so important that Mother Teresa, now Saint Teresa, I like to put that in, Nobel Peace Prize winner, was asked, how do we promote peace in the world? Her answer was, go home and love your family. This just highlights how important the family is. And then, okay, I said that already. Let's skip that. So how do we have a happy family life then? In basic terms, how? With all these things going on and all the intricacies of the complexities of family dynamics, how do we have a happy family? My answer is we go back to basics. What does that mean? It means that we look back and see what are the psychological needs of human beings, and then how are they played out in the family. By the way, this is a plug. That's my book, Back to Basics, where I talk about the 7 basic psychological needs. Okay, so let's go there. In context of the family, what are the basic psychological needs in the context of the family? Okay, first is the need for personal significance, meaning every member of the family must know that they matter. If one member is ignored and another member is given a lot of attention, obviously there will be a problem. This speaks to favoritism. Some members of the family are not given enough attention, some are given too much attention and all that. But every single person, whether you're this personal significance, this need cuts across all developmental stages. When you're an infant, you know very well you need a mother figure or mother to take care of your needs. You matter, okay? And then when you get older, you're an adolescent. You have to know that you are not a non-entity in the family. You matter. You're important. You are not nothing in the family. You are not totally ignored. And when you get older, when you're old as I am, you ask the very basic question: how do I make a difference in this world? How do I matter in this world? Okay. So the most painful thing probably you can do to another human being is to treat that person as a non-entity. When you hate someone, he matters. So children act out so that they get attention because they don't matter, and then maybe they get help or attention only from their parents when they act out, so then at least they matter. Many incidents about how the child who drives the family car to the ditch because his father wasn't paying attention to him. They do extreme things to make them know that they matter. They are not a non-entity in the family. Okay. Then the second one is, of course, love, but we call it affection, unconditional acceptance, basic trust. If you look at yourself now, even as you are now, we know that we need to be accepted as we are. We need to be unconditionally accepted, not to have to prove all the time that we are competent, that we are good, that we are, everything. There's at least one person in our lives that make us know that we are okay as we are. I've experienced this in a lot of adolescents who feel that they are not okay, they are not enough, they need to change who they are and all that. It's very, very difficult. I just had a case this morning about that. Okay, we all need affirmation. No matter how much you've achieved in the world, you still need affirmation from people who matter to you. You still need to know that they think you're okay, that they accept you. And this affirmation is very, very important to children. Children need to be affirmed for the right reason, and they are not affirmed at all. There's a very big consequence as they grow up. You know that. Okay. Next. So the next basic psychological need is called clear and consistent limits. This actually in the family, this is discipline. How do we discipline with respect? Because most of the time, culturally, when I've been out there in the different parts of the country, the disadvantaged areas, people discipline with certain words that come with it. No? Make a kasama. For example, bakit mo hindi ginawa yan ang tamad mo? Why are you not doing your work? You're lazy, or maybe you're just dumb. Why did you do this? Why can't you do it? You know that it's like instead of saying please do this, why did you do this, and really ask, because there's always that habit of make a kabit. There's something that goes with it, and usually it's a put down. Okay, so I just want to make that people make aware. So the other way to look at clear and consistent limits are our job, our job to care for people, to take care of people is difficult, and sometimes we do it so efficiently, so competently, and continuously that we don't know how to take a break. So I think we need to set limits on our own. As our person, we need to listen to our body. When we're tired, rest a bit, take breaks. It's just the ability to discern when I need to take a break, and usually that's based on your body signals. Okay, so listening to your body is one way to say no. Okay, sense of competence. Okay, in the family, for example, we recognize children who are talented in music, very good in math, and so on. No? So I have families where if they're not good in academics, they're just good in swimming, they're not given enough affirmation. So first of all, sense of competence is basic. Every person, when asked, at least from early grade school, when you're asked who I am, a healthy, mentally healthy person will have a part of that definition where he or she knows that she's good at something. Say, I'm a doctor, I'm a mother, I'm whatever, but one of that must be, your self-definition must include an area of competence that you know you're good at. Every person must know they're good at something. It doesn't matter exactly what it is. But what matters is that the family values what they're good at. Because I had a case where she wasn't good in academics, but she was good in swimming. So I asked them. They told me 15 things she was not good at. So I said, "What is she good at?" They couldn't answer because they were focusing on that. But anyway, I said, "Come back and tell me what she's good at." So they came back and said she's good at swimming, lung. So the lung canceled everything that would give the competence value, and swimming competence in swimming was not valued. So she felt that she was not a good enough person, a good enough child. Okay, I explain that more when the questions come. Okay, and then there is also the very important need for affiliation. This is so important now in the COVID and in the world, not just in the family. We all need to be connected because we're actually connected. The world is interconnected now because of the pandemic. We realize how interconnected we are and how one who doesn't wear a mask affects the other, etc. During that time, or we know that we affect each other more concretely now because of the pandemic. But it's true that interconnectedness is the nature of our human existence. No? But in a family, it's so important that child knows that I belong to this family. They see me as part of the family. They're proud of me. They're not like, I'm not an outsider. Many cases, for example, see that they're all doing well. My siblings are all doing well. I'm just the one who's not. I don't belong. Very, very painful because one of the really basic needs of every person, including adults, is to feel a sense of belonging. You might belong to, if you don't belong to a family, maybe you belong to a church group. You might belong to a group of professionals, but we need to belong, to feel a sense of belonging in order to have well-being, good mental health. It's essential. So we need to have a support group, and that's essential, especially for the Filipino setting. For example, when we do disaster work, we don't leave the area until we have formed a support group in the community itself that will help them continue to cope with the situation, okay, and support each other. Okay, this is another very vital thing now, especially in the pandemic. When I do a lot of art therapy, where everybody needs to have various avenues to express themselves, to express their emotions through art, play, music, dance, whatever. And I think during this pandemic, many people realize how it was so helpful to express themselves through art, through even creative cooking, creating recipes, sharing recipes, doing creative things with their garden, etc. Because one of the most vital things about being able to go through art, because art is the opposite. Bringing art into the world or doing art is essentially, you'll find this interesting, is antidepressive. It's an antidepressant. Depression comes when, in other words, now we know everything about depression, all those biological, but anyway, one way of looking at depression is that events and people around you are so overwhelming that you are disempowered totally and rendered helpless and hopeless because everything around you is more powerful than you are and you are overwhelmed. So you are powerless. When you do art, it's the opposite dynamics. You bring up, because that's when the external world imposes on you and you become helpless, to put it very simply. But when you do art, you bring what's inside of you and impose it on the outside world. So therefore you create power, empower yourself. It's the opposite dynamic. So I've seen very many people who use art who have been able to heal from trauma through play, especially for children. For children, play is not just important, it is essential. One symptom that there's something wrong with the child if the child cannot play. In my 45 years of experience, I've seen only once 2 children who could not play. No, in 1 hour, there's a lot of toys and everything. And I've been doing this so many times. So every child, after a time, after the shyness, whatever, after rapport, you know what I'm saying, is built up, they will play because children express themselves naturally through play. Children must be allowed to play. So what happened here was for the whole play therapy hour, they did not play. They hardly moved. And I discovered that they were so traumatized because the father was always abusing the mother, and then the mother eventually killed the father. So they were in a traumatic state and they were frozen, they couldn't move, they were numb, and they could not play. One symptom that there's something wrong with the child psychologically is if the child given the permission, the safe space and everything, and they cannot play. That's a symptom that we need to look at. Okay, for adults and older people, art, music, etc. Anyway, to just give a little story, my art teacher, his wife died, and he told me the only way he coped was he painted every single day for 1 year, and that's how he was able to heal himself through the way he grieved. Anyway, there's more things, maybe questions. And the 7th is, I call it transcendence. It's the ability, the need, as well as the ability to look beyond what is there, to know that there is a light after the tunnel. You know, the cliche that there is a silver lining behind the clouds. Those are cliches, but it's so important to know that something will happen, things will be better. There's that innate kind of belief, because I see it in children. In the child I saw who's 13 years old, this is just an example that comes to mind now. She was abused by her stepfather, and she was in a center for abused children. Her transcendence was amazing and humbling, because after we were doing some sessions, she said to me, you know, after all this, pagkatapos ng lahat nito, I will become a lawyer and I will help all the children who are undergoing the same thing. What faith, what belief, what transcendence, what ability to transcend that child that humbled me, and many cases like that we have encountered. So to hope, to know that there is something that will be better, these too shall pass, and something will be better. We need that. It's a basic need. It's also a good basic ability. And it's very Filipino, because we are in the many places where there's disaster, devastation that we went to, we were humbled because we thought they were totally devastated, helpless people, but they would tell us, okay naman ito, magkakaroon din kami ng nito, magiging okay din kami kasi hindi naman kami pababayaan ng Diyos. Wow, I'm humbled. So they have this faith, this spirituality, this faith that we have as Filipino. I think we should really value it and even use it in our work to help the people, because that's a basic psychological need and ability we have. Okay, that's that. You can ask questions later. So let me just do some actual tips, some mindful practices in the family. A mindfulness practitioner and teacher. So in applying mindfulness to the family, one is mindful communication. What do you mean by that? It doesn't mean that you talk to your children all the time. It means that you listen. And listening is one of the most healing and most magical things you can do to any human being, child or adult or old person. When you deeply listen, not like this, tell me more, or texting, tell me more. That's not really listening. Tell me more. With your whole body, your whole everything about you, really sincerely wanting to listen, you're giving a very, very subliminal, powerful message, which is that you are a worthy person. You matter. You are important. And that in itself, I've seen it in people working with EJK, then all the kinds of disasters we've been through. This is the deep listening, is the first thing you do. And it's the first thing that opens to the path of healing. And I like to say this because in our digital, distracted world, there's so many articles, neurosciences or neuroscience journals on this, and books written on this. One book that's written is Distracted. The topic is Distracted, written by a psychiatrist. I forget the name. Or anyway, I'll find that. But we should give our total as opposed to our distracted presence to our children and to the members of the family, because we are usually distracted. You're doing something, you're talking to the child, but you're not just the cell phone, you're looking something, you're fixing something, you're whatever, you're looking at what's wrong with the light, etc. It's a habit. And we have to be aware that we are usually distracted when we're talking to our children, we're with them, we are usually distracted. And the cell phone is the biggest culprit, but it's not just a cell phone, it's us being not totally able to be there for the child. Okay, that's very important. Of course, family rituals are important. Family rituals. It brings the family together, but it also gives a structure where the family kind of forced to be together. But the fact that they have that regular time to be together, then it helps them to not really be totally separated. Family rituals. Going to mass on Sundays, not anymore, maybe, or maybe just having dinner on Sundays, bringing them together. That's very important. Let's not undermine the effect of that, because even if you're feeling so lazy and you go there and you see your mom and your siblings on a Sunday evening for dinner, whatever is happening there, there's conflict, whatever, you interact. You see each other, you connect somehow. And then that's very important to keep. So what are your family rituals that you can keep? Okay. And then the balance between togetherness and solitude that gives individual space, especially for adolescents, is again and again, they feel that they are being forced to be always together. But you know very well that adolescents and adults and parents need time to be by themselves. Because we're always saying a family should be together all the time. That's not actually mentally healthy, because the family has to have time for non-togetherness, meaning each individual person must have space for himself or herself and not necessarily all the time interacting with the members. Okay, of course, basic respect. I don't have to explain that, but right now I'm very concerned with the third one, which is kindness and forgiveness. I think we're losing just early this morning, I was talking to an adolescent and she was talking about how harsh and how judgmental and how cruel her classmates are for no reason. They just talk in a very cruel way. They insult the other groups and all that. It's not even called bullying, but it might be bullying if you look at it technically. But what it is a lack of kindness. Kindness is being taken for granted. It's being lost. Okay, and forgiveness in a family. I'll say something more about that. In a family, because it's family. You're yourself. You're to get together in a certain place, in a house. Someone or you will always do something wrong. But so therefore, in a family, there's always something to forgive. Every day, there's something to forgive. And in my old age, I listened to Wayne Dyer, who says that if you have a choice in a family or in an intimate relationship, whether to be right or to be kind, choose to be kind. I think those of you who have intimate relationships know this. An incident that I have to tell you. My husband and I were in Paris. It's beautiful, place, etc. We were fighting like anything, shouting and all that. Because I'm right, I wouldn't give in. You have to know that I'm right. You're not right. That kind of thing. You know very well. That's very familiar. You have to make sure that he sees that you're right. Okay. So we're doing that, escalating, and then he, the neurologist, not the psychiatrist, suddenly said, "You know what? Alam mo ba? Let's just choose to be kind." And that stopped our, battle. Okay. So that's just an incident where, it's important to know that you need to be kind in a family situation, especially. Okay. So kindness, for children especially, is communicated to others by giving your attention. Attention is warm. Ignoring is cold. Feels cold. So if you really want to build that happiness, that kind of atmosphere in the family, attention, being kind and giving attention to people who are talking, who need attention, and not a distracted attention, and especially for children. Okay, so I will end with this quote that I like to quote a lot in many situations, from Sharon Salzberg, who is a foremost Buddhist teacher who founded the Insight Meditation Center, has written a lot of books on kindness, a handbook on kindness. She says, and I'll end with this, gratefulness of being, which we experience as happiness, can also be described as love. To be undivided and unfragmented, to be completely present, is to love. To pay attention is to love. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Carandang, for giving us a wonderful and enlightening lecture on a topic we can and should apply to our family lives. I think we can all agree that looking at families from a larger societal context is so important in helping us understand not only the Filipino family unit, but also one another. Today, we learned the basic concepts we need to build a happy family: personal significance, affection, unconditional acceptance and basic trust, clear and consistent limits, a sense of competence, affiliation, a wide scope of self-expression, and transcendence. And may we also remember two important lessons that Dr. Carandang taught us today. First, that to be undivided and unfragmented, to be completely present is to love. To pay attention is to love. And finally, if you have a choice whether to be right or kind, choose to be kind. Before we proceed with our open forum, we will be having a 10-minute break. Kindly input your questions in the Q&A box, and our speakers will be addressing these questions during the open forum. Now we will be hearing from our pharmaceutical sponsors for the day: MedChoice Pharma Incorporated, Medicam Pharmaceuticals Incorporated, Otsuka Philippines Pharmaceutical Incorporated, and Torrent Pharmaceuticals.
from the darkest and saddest time of our lives. We became a channel of light and healing. From expensive and unavailable alternative medicines that took the lives of many, we created affordable and effective medicine in 2005 to alleviate the sufferings of people challenged by depression and other diseases.
So, who is MedChoice?
MedChoice is an advocacy of our chairman that is to provide affordable, quality medicine, proven effective, and affordable solutions to our patients with psych, neuro, and thyroid conditions, as well as products with diabetes management and supplements for maternal care, and soon, vision care.
So, how long have you been in the industry?
For 17 years, MedChoice has helped millions of patients. We have 150 highly knowledgeable and competent employees and are still growing.
And how about your other products?
Most products of MedChoice are sourced from local drug manufacturers, while some are imported from international drug manufacturers. Quality and affordability is our promise, as our products are backed up by proof of quality, especially for mental wellness and brain health. As we move forward to more years of providing better choices, mental wellness is your perfect kasangga of the psychiatrists, patients, and their families. Brain health is your highly dedicated partner that delivers outstanding services to neurologists, patients, and their families.
How about customer service?
We have the utmost dedication to our customers, and we also make ourselves available whenever our help is needed by our customers. 100% pure care talaga. We continue with our mission to make better lives for everyone. Priority ka namin dahil may choice ka.
There's nothing quite like good mornings spent with your family. It makes you recharge to go out and face the day. It makes you feel that today is going to be a great day to set our lives in motion. It makes you feel hopeful that things would go smoothly and function well. It makes you ready to go out and claim victory. I'm glad I get to spend morning rides with my daughter. It's always a relief to have her company before I get to work. Sending her off to school with a happy smile always puts me in the best mood. I'm excited to get to work today. After all, a good night's sleep makes you feel great. My jobs can be challenging sometimes, but the people I work with make it easier. We always uplift each other when things get tough. I work with a diverse group of people with different skills and different stories. There's Don, who makes every moment count, both here at work and when he's home. Melissa, who you can always count on to keep cherished memories and beyond. And Nita, who holistically improves the spirit of everyone here in the office. We work hard on a variety of things, which is why I boost my immunity so I can be healthy in mind and in body to keep up daily. Most days, we are confidently in control of any situation here at the office, making sure that we reign over challenges together, that we move with a common purpose, that we put first things first even when we are at work. and strive to strike a balance between our work lives and personal lives. So when we go home after a productive day with ease, we can find our inner stability. Live our lives to the fullest with the ones we love, and behold calmness, so we could live every day with a healthy state of mind and body.
Designed by Otska for clinicians like you, the Abilify Maintenna dual chamber syringe provides all-in-one reconstitution and administration. Preparing Abilify Maintenna pre-filled dual chamber syringe includes advancing sterile water for injection into drug chamber, mixing, attaching needle, expelling air. Let's look at each step in detail. The dual chamber syringe kit includes everything you need for the preparation and injection of Abilify Maintenna with the pre-filled dual chamber syringe. The first antipsychotic for schizophrenia in a dual chamber syringe design contains both pre-measured drug and diluent, which allows for complete reconstitution, all within the syringe. The kit also includes a quick reference guide with step-by-step instructions for proper administration, an Abilify Maintenna package insert, and 3 different needle size options to choose from. The size of the needle will be determined based on the size of the patient and site of injection. The recommended starting and maintenance dose is 400 milligrams once monthly. In conjunction with the first dose of Abilify Maintenna, patients should take 14 consecutive days of concomitant oral antipsychotic. The dual chamber syringe is available in 400 milligram and 300 milligram syringes. Both Abilify Maintenna lyophilized powder and the sterile water for injection are supplied within this syringe, eliminating the transfer step from vial to syringe. The Abilify Maintenna pre-filled dual chamber syringe allows you to reconstitute the lyophilized Abilify Maintenna in 2 steps. 1. Push the plunger rod slightly to engage threads, and then rotate the plunger rod until the rod stops rotating to release the diluent. After the plunger rod is at a complete stop, the middle stopper will be at the indicator line. 2. Vertically shake the syringe vigorously for 20 seconds until the drug is uniformly milky white. Visually inspect the syringe for particulate matter and discoloration prior to administration. The reconstituted product suspension should appear to be a uniform, homogeneous suspension that is opaque and milky white in color. Use within 30 minutes after reconstitution. Twist and pull off the overcap, as well as the tip cap. Select the appropriate needle based on the size of the patient and the site of injection. For non-obese patients, a 1-inch, 23-gauge needle is available for deltoid injection, and a 1 1/2 inch, 22-gauge needle is available for gluteal injection. For obese patients, the 1 1/2 inch, 22-gauge needle is available for deltoid injection, and a 2-inch, 21-gauge needle is available for gluteal injection. While holding the needle cap, ensure the needle is firmly seated on the safety device with a push. Twist clockwise until snugly fitted. Remove the needle cap by pulling straight up. Keep holding the syringe upright and expel the air by advancing the plunger rod slowly. Continue until the suspension fills the needle base. If it's not possible to advance the plunger rod to expel the air, check that the plunger rod is rotated to a complete stop. Slowly inject the suspension into the deltoid or gluteal muscle in a single injection. Do not massage the injection site. rotate sites of monthly injections between the two deltoid or gluteal muscles. After the injection, engage the needle safety device and safely discard all kit components. The Abilify Maintenna pre-filled dual-chamber syringe is for single use only. Please refer to the Abilify Maintenna quick reference guide or package insert enclosed in the kit for further information.
Thank you once again to our major sponsors for the day, MedChoice Pharma Incorporated, Medichem Pharmaceuticals Incorporated, Otsuka Philippines Pharmaceutical Incorporated, and Torrent Pharmaceuticals. Before we proceed to the open forum, we'd like to gently remind everyone to answer our evaluation form for this event. You will be seeing a pop-up on your screens. Just click the link which would lead you to the form. We will be sending this prompt again later after the open forum. Okay, so good morning, doctors. Thank you for joining us for the open forum today. It seems that so many people were engaged in your lectures, and we have received several questions already from our chat box. So good morning to Dr. Go-Chu and Dr. Carandang. So our first question is directed towards Dr. Go-Chu. One of our participants commented and asked, "Thank you, Dr. Go-Chu, for the very informative lecture on positive psychiatry. May I ask, when does positive psychiatry become toxic positivity, and how may we avoid this?"
Okay. When we say kasi positive psychiatry, it's more of like parang an orientation, no? You might be confusing this. That's why nga Martin Seligman, during his talks, he would always say, when I say happiness, it is not, that kind of, cheerful happiness, because that one cannot be sustained. Because as I said, that depends on the dopamine. We talk more of an orientation, like a perspective. So when we say like optimism, it's really, as I said earlier, it's really more about realizing when, it's a basic orientation that things might get better, but then being able also to abandon, your goals if it appears that, it's no longer accomplishable. It becomes like toxic if I think it becomes like unrealistic optimism. It will be good, things will turn out well, etc., without, really looking at the circumstances that you're currently at.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Go-Chu, for that. Our next question is for Dr. Carandang. Thank you for your talk regarding family life. What is your advice for people who have toxic relationships with their families? Would it be advisable for them to cut ties for the sake of their mental health?
Oh, that's an interesting question, because there's toxic family dynamics. You can do either one of the things: cut ties or resolve it. Talk about it, put it out in the open, communicate with each other. But from my experience, sometimes it's very difficult to do that without a therapist or a moderator or somebody who will take care of the dynamics, because sometimes it's already so toxic for so long. So there are situations when you already tried everything. You tried to talk to your parents, or your parents, maybe whoever is asking the question. You've talked to the family member where there's a conflict, where there's a deep kind of negativity. It might be good to, first of all, instead of just leaving, maybe take a break, really get out physically, sometimes go on a retreat or something, and just be with yourself and rethink what's going on, or maybe ask for advice, because to just leave without any kind of preliminary solution that you're doing might be regretful. You might regret it if you just leave, and then the ties won't be mended anymore. So first, try to have an open communication and say, I would like to we like our relationship to be better. Can we talk about it? If that doesn't work, you ask somebody to help you. Sometimes they have a uncle or a lolo, etc. Not just going to professional, and then if doesn't help, go to a professional. And then if things are really difficult and unbearable, you can take a leave, maybe for a few days, just to be able to recover, because toxicity also affects our physical, not just our mental health. So you might get sick. If you're always in a toxic family situation, you might get physically ill, not just mentally ill. So I hope that answered the question, because it requires a lot of other questions for me to ask you to be more specific.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Carandang, for that. I think it's a very good thing to think about, taking a pause and making the decision about what to do when you're faced with toxic relationships or any problems. Yeah. Yes, well. Our next question is for Dr. Go-Chu. It's a very practical one. Is it okay to avoid attending school batch reunions just to lessen the feeling of being unable to keep up with the Joneses?
That's an interesting question, no? Well, of course, it's perfectly fine, because that would be ultimately your decision naman anyway. But I think the bigger question is that, but that's just like one aspect of keeping up with the Joneses. There are a lot of opportunities in real life to keep up with the Joneses. It can be like, your neighbor's new car, or the new house, or, whatever, a new pet. The thing is that maybe what has to be addressed will be looking at the things that, maybe not just at the reunion, kasi, baka successful din ang kasamahan, etc. But looking at your own life and taking stock of the things that you are proud of your accomplishments, of your relationships. If you focus on all of these things rather than what you don't have in terms of like keeping up with the Joneses, that might be a better approach.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. I think you also mentioned during your talk about keeping an inventory of things that you're proud of, about yourself.
That's right.
That would be very applicable, I think, in this setting, especially.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes. So our next question, I think, can be directed to both speakers, and I think it's a very important one. How can a person be helped if he or she does not see that they have a problem or that they have mental health issues? So let's begin with Dr. Go-Chu.
Okay, so that's really very hard. We call that insight. No, insight is the realization that you realize that there's something wrong and that you need help. And not a lot of people who need help will have what we call insight. Sometimes, if it's not so bad naman, you just wait until the person realizes that he needs help and he wants help, and that's the time you can help them. Other times naman, it will be like there will be some like big crisis in their lives that will precipitate this person to get help, whether or not he or she wants to get help. No, there are some people, like for example, let's say persons with substance use disorders. A lot of times, persons with substance use disorders will not have insight. So if you can get them to let's say a psychologist or a psychiatrist, we can do what we call like motivational interviewing, wherein you help them explore like motives, what are the reasons that you might need to eventually like try to like abandon alcohol, and then you do it like in a stepwise fashion. But in general, kasi as a lay person, like if it's a family, a friend, the most that you can do is to make sure that your loved one or your friend or whoever realizes that you will be there to like listen, if and when he or she needs somebody to like talk with in a non-judgmental way. Do not like offer advice if it's not like us, and do not be self-righteous and pontificate on what should be done. Sometimes it's just like listening. What else? But of course, that being said, if and when it comes to the point that that person is having like emergencies, like thoughts of harming self or hurting other people, then at that point, then definitely that person, whether he likes it or not, will have to be brought to a hospital, because that constitutes already an emergency. Okay, so maybe Dr. Carandang will have something more to add.
I think what I was going to say was said already very well, but I'd like to address this to the young people. Are there young people listening?
Yes, for Dr.
Yeah, and anyway, because I've had this question many times, and it's very difficult because you, as the one seeing the person needing help, cannot do anything because it's your problem actually, because you're seeing somebody needing help and you can't do anything. So go back to yourself, and what is it that you can do or not do? What's your relationship with that person, number one? Is he your friend, family member, etc.? Look at it that way. And then how severe is the need of the person from your point of view? As was mentioned by Dr. Lovie, if it's an emergency situation, by all means, talk to the person, bring that person to the doctor, and don't hesitate. But if it's just like a person who is having problems this is very common in a setting, in a organization, in a school setting, in a hospital setting, whatever setting. It's very common that you see somebody and everybody thinks that person needs help, and she doesn't think that she just needs help. So I think one way that has worked with some of these practical things that we've done is that if there's a close friend of this person, the close friend may be able to be there for that person. But if there's just no insight whatsoever, even if you're there for the person, you can ask. If that's your friend, you can ask directly. I noticed, I'm concerned. You can be very honest and authentic about it. It's my concern. I'm very concerned, and I'd like to tell you that I'm concerned because I feel that there might be something going on, and I'm here for you, or if you need any help. Sometimes it's better to just be direct and honest and own the concern. I am very concerned. It's my concern. So I hope you don't mind, but I feel like maybe you might want to talk about it, or you might want to get some help. Sometimes it works when you're direct about it, especially if that person is somebody you know. Just to add.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Go-Chu and Dr. Carandang. I think our next question is also directed towards Dr. Carandang. I believe the person who sent this in is a teacher. So she said that, I am part of the academe. We always encounter the panganay. A common statement that they get is lagi silang pinaparusahan at umaako ng responsibilidad. So what advice can we give for the panganay child, doctor, who is taking on a lot of responsibilities in the family setting?
Very good question. I have my book on that. I call it tagasalo. Most of the people who go to helping professions like us are tagasalos. No, in other words, we want to make things right. We are there to help people. We are there to make family things better and all that. So I think, what was the basic question again?
How do we help? The tagasalo?
How do you help the tagasalo? Okay. In that book, I also talked about the compulsive tagasalo and the non-compulsive tagasalo. So you ask yourself, are you a compulsive tagasalo? Meaning you always have to rescue, take care of people as a habit, as a way of life. And then you get very tired. And sometimes you get resentful. So it's very important to be aware of your own need to make salo. Is it my own need? And then how to temper it. No, because the tagasalo can be compulsive. I was a tagasalo, and still, but I have been able to somehow temper it by learning certain things. For example, how to say a high quality no. How do you say a high quality no? In our culture, it's very difficult to say no when somebody needs help or somebody asks you, because the person might be hurt. Actually, the person might not go to you and might not like you. There's the underlying feeling also of that wanting to be liked, etc. So I think be aware if you are, first of all, compulsive about tagasalo, and be a more discriminating tagasalo. That's really up to you. At every situation, do you jump at the situation to make it right or to help someone? Go back to yourself and mindfully say, for example, how do I discern whether I'm going to help that person or not help that person? What is the situation like? So you can also take care of your own need to make salo. It might be your own need. The panganay in the family kasi says a role. I'm the ate, for example. Everybody goes to the ate or the kuya, and that's kind of a prescribed role in our families. I mean, it's an unspoken but very common prescribed role that we play. But I think if we are aware and if we are mindful, we can even structure people in the family to say, yes, I can do that. There's certain things I can do. I'll do that for you, but there's certain things I cannot do, number one. Discern what can you do and what you cannot do. Second, how are you? Are you burnt out, or are you able to take care of not being burnt out? Because that's the price of the tagasalo. We burn out. So, okay, what are the signs? You're irritable, you're easy to anger, you're very sensitive, you get tired, etc., and so on. So, the most important thing is tune into yourself and be aware. Am I compulsive tagasalo? Should I make salo this one? What is the real problem here? Is this just my need to make salo? Sometimes the need to make salo is a very strong underlying need to be in control. That's what I became aware of, because people did study already on my tagasalo. It was translated into Japanese, and a lot of people have used it already in their thesis and in their lives. And it's so important to discern, am I compulsive, or just discern what I will make salo and what not. Be two things: the severity of the situation and my own situation of being burnt out or not burnt out, and my own body. Is my body of giving up, saying signals that I should stop, and therefore I have to have a high quality. Learn to say a high quality no, which is a well thought out no, not a reactive no. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Carandang. I think it's very practical advice. As you mentioned, I think a lot of our audience will definitely be from the fields of service, psychology, from psychiatry. So I think being aware of ourselves and those we face as well, very important in the context of who we are in our own family structures. Our next question po is, I think, directed towards Dr. Go-Chu. I think this is also a very practical question with regard to when to seek help. So somebody asked, how can you tell if it's just stress, or it might be an early stage of anxiety or something leading to depression?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a very good question. No, obviously, as we said, stress we cannot prevent. But usually, kasi, if it's stress or if it's normative depression or maybe sadness or anxiety as sort of like nervousness, it's usually self-limiting. At some point, okay, you feel so bad at a certain time, and then after that, you feel better. After that situation, it passes. However, as Freud has always said, and I would quote, if it affects your capacity to love and to work, that might already be reason for concern. When we say love, it's not just, like romantic love, but your capacity to have like good relationships. If it affects your relationships, like for example, dati parang you really like, after a long day's work, you want to like go out, have dinner with your partner. Tapos pagpati ganun na, parang ayaw mo na rin, so that affects your relationships already. And your capacity to work. When I say work, it's not just in parang work sa office, ganon, but the capacity to be productive. Even if, you just like stay home, but then, you used to do like a lot of like crafts and hobbies and all of those, tapos you don't want to do those anymore, then that might be reason for concern as well. So those are usually our parameters for saying, that maybe that has developed into a clinical condition.
Okay. Thank you,
Yeah,
Dr.
may I
Yes,
add to
Carandang.
a very important question? I think Dr. Lovie has mentioned the time frame of if it's a short term, it's about something, and then you feel that way, and then later you don't feel that way. So there's the time frame, duration. But I think it's also important to know the time, the functioning. How am I functioning, and also that to know that when you're walang gana anymore for anything, things that you used to find joy in, things that you used to enjoy, yung wala na, no more gana for anything, and you lose your ability to function in the normal way. Even just everyday activities become very much of a chore that you can't even do it. Things like, I just want to add because I think she has mentioned everything already. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Carandang. So we have time for one last question, which I think will be directed towards both doctors as well. And again, a very important question. This came from someone in the audience. Mental health issues run in our blood. Is there a way to prevent this for the next generation? So I'm thinking this is in the family context of those who have psychological or psychiatric conditions. Dr. Carandang, would you like to start po?
Me? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think you're alluding to, because mental health issues run in our blood, meaning that it is genetic, maybe that's what you mean, but also you might be alluding to intergenerational patterns, if it's a psychological mental health. So I think what's important here is, first of all, awareness, looking at the issues that are there right now. Okay, what are these issues that are there right now? Am I feeling them? Is it my issue, my own personal issue, or is it the issue of everybody in the family? Because if we have mental health issues that we don't sort out, then they go from generation to generation. It's called intergenerational patterns, very difficult to break. But your awareness, you pause and you see, what are these issues? There are issues here there that can be actually taken care of, discussed, sorted out, and that can be done. So that they do not go from generation to generation in a very intrinsic intergenerational pattern type of way, no? But it's hard to say that it's in our blood. I mean, maybe Dr. Lovie can say more about this medically, but I think it's also in our way of life. It's in our mental well-being. It's in our way of thinking. These are thinking habits that make these mental issues seem to be in our blood, but maybe most of them may not be in our blood. But I think it's something that we can be aware of, look at it, handle it so it doesn't handle you. Look at it in front of you. Don't let it be at the back of you where it controls you. Then these issues become clearer. You look at them, you have more power over them, and you can handle them so that they don't handle you. That's what I say.
Thank you, Doctor. I think I'd like to add to that also. It's true, no? There are certain illnesses, like for example, the mood disorders, depression, bipolar. If you have somebody in the family who has it, then it increases the chances of somebody else, the next generation of having it. But the thing is, that being said, in psychiatry, there's no such thing as purely genetics. There's such a thing also as epigenetics. You might inherit the gene for it. However, if, for example, you grew up in a very supportive environment, the one that has been just recently been described by Dr. Carandang, and relatively, you have a supportive environment, you have a good family, the initial bond, you're able to form secure bonds in childhood, that may actually be very protective against future mental illness. In fact, I cannot overstress the importance of social support and connectedness. Sa sa ER, usually, di ba, we would get like mga patients, they try to ingest, they try to kill themselves, etc. So what do we do sa ER? The first thing that you do is, of course, safety, and then you try to get in touch with the family. And most of the time, ay, hindi ko alam na parang ganun pala ang pinagdadaanan niya. And then minsan sa ER pala, they'll try to sort things out, and then the patient feels so much better, afterwards, because that sense of like being able to connect with someone and to be able to be supported by someone is already like protective already. So I think you cannot overstress the importance of these epigenetics, these factors that are beyond genetics, no?
Definitely.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Go-Chu and Dr. Carandang. With that, I will be closing our question and answer. Again, it's been an honor for me to be moderating.
Yeah. Wait lang, kasi there are like more questions here. Like if I typed here sa Zoom, will I be able to answer ba? How
no,
does it work?
Doctor. Would you like to continue po?
No more na. It's too long. We will be going beyond our time
Okay.
na. Maybe
Sige.
I can try to answer na lang sa Facebook.
All right, Doctor. So thank you very much, Dr.
Okay.
Go-Chu, for that.
Sige.
For our listeners, should you have additional questions, we'll try to address them over the Facebook feed na lang po early throughout the day. Again, thank you very much to both of our speakers today. It's really been an honor to moderate for two such esteemed speakers and for such important topics today. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for attending our last day of the webinar series on mental health entitled Bridging Mental Health, the Pursuit of Well-Being. We'd also like to give our heartfelt special thanks to Beatrice, who powered this platform and provided the technical assistance our section needed to hold this webinar series for everyone. On behalf of the Makati Medical Center section of Psychiatry, I'd like to thank everyone who has continued to support and attend our yearly lecture series. We hope you join us next year for the next postgraduate course. Certificates of attendance will be sent via email to everyone who registered. We have been awarded 1 CPD unit for the entire webinar series, which will be reflected in your certificates. Please expect to receive your certificates within the next few days. If you have any further questions or concerns, please feel free to contact us at MMC Psychiatry, mmcpsychiatry.postgrad@gmail.com or 0945-431-0501. Keep safe, be kind, and we hope you always remember the practices we have learned this week on the lifelong journey we have towards the pursuit of well-being. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you to our major sponsors. Conjugate Corporation, Distrofil, Distribution Solutions Philippines Incorporated, Johnson's & Johnson's Philippines, Lundbeck Philippines, MedChoice, CNS Pharma Group, Medicam, the CNS subsidiary of Unilab, Otsuka Pharmaceuticals, Torrent Pharma Philippines, we would also like to thank our minor sponsors: Abbott Laboratories, Sun Pharma Philippines, Zydus Neurosciences. Special thanks to Vexa Life Sciences. This event is powered by Beatrice,